Hi there FFTCG players, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a hot minute since I last posted a deck profile for Final Fantasy TCG, but before we go into the one that I'm actually looking at doing, which involves a deck I actually played for a long time during the Opus 8 period, but I've now realised how I want to take the direction for it in Opus 9, I do want to explain that the reason I haven't done many deck profiles over the past few weeks is because honestly, it seemed like everyone solved the meta for Opus 9 really quite quickly. But honestly, after seeing decks come about like Chris Matisky's Ice Water Vice Kings, or, you know, Spicy Vice Kings as he calls it, and seeing some of the stuff that's coming out of the woodworks this past week or two, I've actually been really inspired to start building some more deck profiles of my own so that I can bring myself right back into the FFTCG crowd. So if you guys want to see my new Nouveau Giga Pudding deck, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always guys, don't forget to check out all of the social media links in the description box below. So that's my Facebook, my Twitter, my Discord, my Twitch, which I shall leave the schedule for, just so you guys can see that in case you want to come and watch me playing some games and things like that. But do bear in mind that this weekend I will actually be at the Final Fantasy TCG Fan Festival in Seville. So if you happen to be at the festival as well, then definitely come and say hi. I'm actually going to have this deck built for the event because it's not a regular constructed event, it's actually going to start as a pauper event, which I have a completely different deck for. So if you guys want to help me test this deck and learn some more bits about it, and then help me learn some more stuff about it, then definitely come and say hello and keep in touch with that. Now I actually saw a deck that was quite similar to this, that had done really well in one of the Japanese Masters tournaments, and I kind of thought, there's a couple of things I'd really like to draw inspiration from here to improve my own Earth-Ice deck, because I actually really loved playing Ice-Earth all the way through Opus 8. So I kind of wanted to figure out how I wanted to improve it for Opus 9, but when it came out I was just like, I don't know if I really want to put more Earth in there because I worry that the base of the deck would fall apart, but I've discovered a few tech plays in here that I actually think are really, really strong. And before I continue, obviously do not forget to check out ffdecks.com. As you can see here, there's so much going on with it. It's a lovely website. You've got all this lovely stuff just up here that you can have a look at. And if you want to check out the deck itself, I'll leave a link in the description box for that. But going into the deck, it's very similar to the Earth Ice deck I originally posted and played at multiple Crystal Cups, and I actually did quite well with. However, I'll go over sort of the basis of the deck to begin with first, and then I'll explain some of the changes I've made that have come through Opus 9. So the deck wants to establish an early backup board quite quickly, and it wants to try and get to 5 backups as quickly as possible, because the idea of the deck is to try and envelop a card advantage system as quickly as possible by way of things like Sephiroth. You've got Genesis that will do it. You've got Garland is brilliant in the early game. I love playing Garland. I've always really enjoyed it. And I really, really like the pacing that Ice sets, because Ice basically drags your opponent down to your level and makes it so they have to play your game. It's control through and through. And then what Earth adds to it is the Flans, which means that you essentially have a 6th backup if you have an Ice Flan out, because it can search for the Earth one or the Ice one at any given time. So it's 1 Ice and dull, search your deck for any Flan and put it in your hand. So not only have you got access to a 6th backup essentially, because the 6th card, or the card that you search for, is 2 CP that will help you play many of the expensive cards that are in the deck, but Earth Flan actually can be quite cheeky. In response to, say, your opponent attacking you, you could block with something that's evenly powered, and then in response to your block, go search for an Earth Flan and then discard it to give your blocking guy 1000 power. Doesn't sound like much, but you would be absolutely stunned how often I pulled that maneuver off in various tournaments and people didn't see it coming. A lot of the backups in this deck are actually revolved around enter play effects, or at least the Ice backups are, because it makes it so that they're that much more interactive with Kuja. Cocytus, the Emperor, and Edward all work fantastically for this reason, and Shantoto, who is an Ice backup despite being an Earth backup because she counts as every colour. And I've only gone with 1 Shantoto this time as opposed to 2, because this deck has a big thing about recurring things from the break zone repeatedly after you've used them, and being able to have access to multiple characters in the break zone as frequently as possible. Because one of the issues that I always had when playing Earth Ice is that when it came to late game, you'd often find that you can get through your deck really quickly, but once you kind of played all your tricks out, it starts to become a bit of a problem to come back into the game, whereas an Earth Wind deck, I mean, you've got to remember that when I played this deck most heavily, Dadaluma was legal, so now he's not so much of a problem. I do think that this deck is still very powerful, but having access to so much of your break zone in this deck with some of the extra text that I've put in gives it a late game push that it never originally had. This late game push comes in the form of Larkesis and Luminous Puma. Now, Larkesis, I sat there and I thought, actually, this card's really good in Ice Earth because, you know, you want to be able to have access to your break zone anyway. And then Luminous Puma was a card I always considered putting into my deck back in Opus 8, purely because the synergy with cards like Sephiroth, or Cecil, or Sid Olstein, or even Renoa and Genesis is actually really good. And being able to just recur things repeatedly. And Larkesis allows you to repeat Luminous Puma, which allows you to repeat Larkesis. So you've got like a nice little loop there that means you always have access to your break zone. Because I'm only running one Shantotto now, because of the ability to return it back to my hand through Luminous Puma, or the now Minfilia that I've put in place of the second Shantotto, you're going to be able to pull it back after breaking it with Kuja, and then you've got like a nice little way, provided your opponent obviously doesn't exile your break zone or anything. So you can recur Shantottos, you can recur practically anything in this deck because of Larkesis and Luminous Puma. Even Flans are going to be really useful if a Larkesis comes down, picks up a Flan. It's a slightly more costed Serra at worst, and that seems like a really good play to me. And then obviously you've got Gabranth that's now been added to the game as well, who can search for some of your biggest plays. So you can get your Kuja really early so that you can discard it, it's in your break zone ready for you when you want it. If you want Sephiroth, then you can go and grab Sephiroth. If you want Sid or Cecil, all four of those targets are extremely powerful. And, you know, having an extra value guy if you're on 6 damage isn't the end of the world, it's actually kind of nice, but it also actually increases the EX count in this deck quite nicely as well. Whereas before, I remember I only had like 7 or 8, now I have 12. And I think that makes a rather big difference to the deck in general, just by being okay taking damage, because a lot of ice decks do tend to be a little bit slow on the uptake when it comes to setting up. So if you can take a bit of damage and then, you know, grab cards back with Gabranth, or, you know, freeze things with Cocytus, there's a lot of nice little extras that you get out of your EX burst that you never originally had before. One of the primary reasons I really like Luminous Puma in this deck actually is its interaction with Sephiroth. Because of the way that the CP count actually works, if you already have a Sephiroth out, and you discard a card and play a Luminous Puma, provided you have 5 backups, so you've gone discard a card, 3 backups, play Luminous Puma, return a Sephiroth that's in my break zone to my hand, activate with one of my remaining backups the S ability on the Sephiroth I have out to discard 2 cards. If I wanted to, I could even crack the Luminous Puma, pick the Sephiroth back up again, and then use my 5th backup to make it so they discard 4 cards in total, where I've only had to discard 1. And that to me seems like a really powerful trade, and the fact that what's in your break zone in Ice, like so Genesis and Vayne and all these toolboxy things you have, are always present threats in this deck because Luminous Puma exists. Now there is one card that I haven't put in here that I'm actually very interested to try out, and I really want to test this, so if anyone else gets the time to test it before I do, let me know what you think of it. And it's a single copy of Leo, of all things. And the reason for this is because the CP equates so perfectly alongside Larkesis and Puma that it actually works out that you can have Leo and Larkesis out at all times, provided you have at least 1 card in your hand. Because what you can do is, say you have a Leo in your break zone, and a Larkesis or a Puma in your hand, and the other one in your break zone. So you discard 1 and dull 3 backups to play the Luminous Puma and pick the Larkesis back up. You then discard the other card from your hand and then dull 1 to play the Larkesis and pick up the Puma, and in response to that, you then sack the Puma and pick up Leo, dull 1, and then play the Leo. If both of them die, you just play the Puma again, and then pick up Larkesis, which picks up the Puma, and then picks up the Leo. Or if the Puma dies, you can then... You get this nice little loop of, because of the fact that you have 5 backups out, it costs you 9 CP to do it, effectively, but you're picking a card up each time, and you've basically trading whatever 2 cards in your hand for having a Larkesis and a Leo on the board. And because the deck is almost entirely character based, there's only 2 summons in the whole deck, you're probably going to have a fair few characters for Leo to at least have some power on him as well. So it's a quirky thought. It was something that came up with some friends at Nationals when I was there not too long ago. But it was something I definitely might want to try a single copy out of before I, judge it and throw it away. Basically, the game plan with this deck is, like most Ice decks, is that you want to get ahead as early as possible in terms of card advantage, and you want to stay ahead. It's very easy for any Ice deck to stay on top of your opponent once they've already applied the pressure. The only problem with it is that if you fall behind with an ice deck, it's actually quite difficult for you to come back from it. But half the reason we run Earth in this deck is to run Shantotto and punish your opponent for overextending. So if they've got 4 forwards out, you've only got your Sephiroth, and then you play a Shantotto, you've come back into the game. You've already discarded the card from the hand with a Sephiroth. Shantotto's now wiped your opponent's board. Ice is much better at top decking than practically any deck in the game, because you top deck, say, a Genesis. You go in. It's for this reason I've only gone with one Renoa, but you could have a little bit of wiggle room here. Garland, as much as I love the card, possibly doesn't need to be here. I think the card's amazing because the early game pressure is so powerful, and then but he's not very good in the late game, generally speaking, unless you're against Mono Wind, because Mono Wind needs to have its 5 backups out at all times so that it's able to effectively play Diablos. So that it's effectively able to use Yuri. Any Mono Wind deck is going to want to have, you know, access to their stuff. Wind Water has less of a problem because Valor 4 exists, but I mean, now that Riku's gone, we may not have to worry about that quite as much because now they have to actually push for game, and they might mill out before we do. Then the last card I want to talk about before I end the video is going to be Qlog. Now, Qlog is controversial in multicolour decks, but I honestly think that even in this particular deck, he's still really important because ice characters tend to be quite underpowered for good reason, and having an 8,000 power Genesis is honestly so important, and 9,000 power Sephiroths, 10,000 power Kujas and Sidolsteins. Just having your guys be able to just punch damage through is really important because your opponent pretty much has to block Genesis at all times, otherwise you're just going to end up hemorrhaging card advantage to the ice player. So being able to make sure that you're, you know, improve Genesis's chances of either killing a guy or getting an attack through, not dying to opposing Glacial Lavalaces or 7,000 damage attack or, you know, spells and summons, you definitely want to have Qlog in the deck. And in my experience, I've tried ice decks without it. You know, even Garland and Sarah being on curve at 7,000 power makes a huge difference to how good they are. So I honestly could not live without 3 Qlog, even though there's slightly more Earth in the deck than I played originally. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed the deck profile. Some of the videos I have coming up over the next couple of weeks for FFTCG is the fact that I really want to turn some attention to some of the alternate formats that are available in FFTCG. We're going to be playing Pauper in Seville, and we're also going to be experimenting with title format, and I think title format is honestly so much fun, and I don't know why more people don't play it. So if you guys are interested in learning a bit more about title format, or you've perhaps got a deck profile that you'd like me to have a look at, and then maybe I could feature it on the channel for you, things like that, I really want to get a little collection of different Final Fantasy titled decks that I can showcase on this channel, because I think it'd be really awesome to show people that there are alternate formats in the game, and they can actually be really fun. So let me know in the comments below if you fancy that, or send me a message on Discord or anything like that, and I'll certainly have a look at it. Anyways, thank you ever so much for watching the video again. Hopefully I shall see you guys soon. Don't forget to check out all of the social media links, and of course don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell to get notifications for any videos I might be making in the future. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!